In the last update, we shaped and sanded the stock. And in this update, we're going to finish the stock and we're going to brown the barrel. Well, we've stained the stock and we've whiskered it. And we did that by wetting it and then holding it over a gas fire until it raised the grain. And now we're going to put those whiskers to good use. I'm going to use some tung oil, and I'm actually going to sand those whiskers off and sand them into the pores on the walnut. Now with maple I wouldn't do this, but walnut is a very porous wood and those pores have to be filled if you want to give it a good finish. And I'm going to use the whiskers themselves to help fill the pores, along with a little additional sawdust that I take off while I'm putting the finish in. So I'm using 1500 grit sandpaper to do this. Just going to get some finish on here, get a little area going. I like to just use my hand to put this finish on. Tung oil is like linseed oil, but it has a drying agent in it. Pure linseed oil, especially in a porous walnut stock like this, would just soak right in. So I'm taking this 1500 grit wet and dry sandpaper and I'm just going to go over the entire stock. And I'm rubbing against the grain. Up until now I've been sanding with the grain, but to do this I want to go against it and cut those whiskers off and kind of rub them in to the stock itself. I wet sanded the entire stock with the tung oil and 1500 grit sandpaper, and then I hung it out to cure for 24 hours, and I turned my attention to the barrel. The barrel comes blued, and I don't know how well this will show up. They put pretty good shine on it, but it still has all of the machine marks in it. So what I'm going to do is strip all the bluing off using navel jelly, and then I'm going to draw file and polish this and I'll brown it, which is really more appropriate for a gun of this era. So I've already removed the touch hole, which you can see is coned on the inside, which is nice. So I'll put that aside. And now I'm just going to coat this with navel jelly and I'll let that set for about 10 minutes, and then I should be able to basically rinse the bluing right off of here and I can start draw filing it. Now here's what the barrel looks like after navel jelly's had a chance to work its magic. So we've got the bluing off, and now I'm going to apply some Dykem to one of the oblique flats. It'll be the first thing that I'm going to draw file. So I'm just going to get this painted, let it dry, and then go to town. Well, I'm using my Brownells draw file. I know Brownells doesn't make this anymore, which is unfortunate. I'm chalking it up, and I'm doing one of the oblique flats. So I'd covered it with Dykem, and now I'm cutting all the Dykem off, and when I don't see any more Dykem, I know that I've got it all nice and flat and I've got all the gouges out of it. Now, a lot of people like to push the files away from them. I prefer drawing it towards me. I feel like I have more control over it that way. And we just gotta keep these things clean and chalked up, and we're good to go. So I'm going to do 3 flats. I'm going to do the 2 obliques in the top. That's all I'm going to draw file because it does change the dimensions. I don't want to change it where it's inletted. I'm just going to kind of polish that out. It's going to be covered up mostly by the stock wood, and if the 3 top flats are draw filed and polished really nicely, that's what draws your eye, in my opinion. You can tell when a draw file is really doing its job because it cuts off these long slivers that look almost like steel wool, and that's how you know you're really getting a good cut with them. You can see these. So we're pretty much done with this flat right here. So now we got to do 2 more. After draw filing, I polish each flat with progressively finer pieces of sandpaper. And I want to thank J.D. Kerstetter for turning me on to this little product, the Wood River Turner Sanding Pack. It's got all these grits from 150 to 600 cloth backed on rolls, and it's got a great little dispenser. You just pull them out, and I think it is fantastic. So that comes from woodcraft.com, and it's very handy, and I don't have to back them with duct tape because the cloth backing really holds up. So right now I'm on the 320 grit, and I'm going to work my way down to 600 grit, and then I'm going to brown it. I brown the barrel with a product called Plum Brown. This is a heat-activated browning agent, and with a barrel this short, it's really easy to use. I degreased it, and I chucked it in my oven, preheated to 300 degrees, and left it in there for a half hour. Pulled it out and slathered on the Plum Brown, and in no time I had a good brown finish. Then you just rinse it off, and then start working it over with oil to kill the rusting process, because browning is really just a controlled form of rusting. Well, I've got the barrel browned, which I think is more appropriate for this type of a pistol. And I've decided not to use this rear sight that Pedersoli supplies. I think it's too high, requires a very high front sight. So I'm going to put this sight on, which is really more appropriate to a colonial pistol than this big job. But the only problem is I had quite a bit bigger dovetail on the new sight than we had on the old sight. So I'm not sure how well you can see that. I'll just zoom it just a bit. So the old sight had a smaller dovetail. This one's got quite a bit bigger one, but it's a nice low sight blade, good for a pistol like this. So I already opened up the rear dovetail so that I can install that sight, and I'm going to do that right now. I'll just tap it in to get it started a little bit. And I'll use a brass drift. There we go. I think we're good. Okay. So now we've got a nice low profile rear sight. I also decided to replace the front sight that came with the kit with a shorter silver bladed front sight that I happen to have in my parts drawer. After sanding in the whiskers under the stock into a fairly heavy coat of tung oil finish, I let the stock cure for 24 hours. Then I sanded the entire stock again with 1500 grit sandpaper. And then I put a very light coat of tung oil on and let that cure for another 24 hours. In all, I put 3 coats of tung oil on after the whiskering operation, letting it cure for 24 hours between each coat. And then we were done. It was time to screw the gun back together. This is what the finished product looks like. It took me about 40 hours of actual hands-on work to do this kit. And even though it didn't come out perfect, I'm pretty pleased with it. I think it's not bad for the first time working on a pistol. If any of you are thinking of building this pistol kit, I really hope this video series helps you out.